The ship from Earth landed gently on the smooth silver platform of Velmara Prime, the royal planet of the Velmari Empire. It was a grand world filled with tall blue trees, glowing rivers, and flying ships that moved without sound.
Ow.
The sky was always soft purple, and golden birds flew in circles above the white palace towers. From the ship, a group of humans stepped out. They wore neat uniforms, and each one looked around with quiet curiosity. Among them was Daniel Rook, a young man of 24 years. He had short, dark hair, calm brown eyes, and a soft but serious face. He wore no armor, no medals, just a simple gray suit and a small Earth flag on his arm. Daniel was not a soldier. He was not a leader or a fighter. He was a translator, spoke 17 languages, including Velmori, and was sent as a quiet observer for the Terran embassy. Job was to listen, learn, and help when needed, nothing more. The Velmari royal guards watched the humans with careful eyes. The tallest of them held large silver staffs, and their armor shined like moonlight. Behind them, standing on a high platform, was the royal family of Velma Ra, and standing in the middle was Princess Kavira. She was 19 years old, tall and proud, with silver blue skin and long dark purple hair that floated behind her like a cloud. Her eyes were sharp like ice, and she wore a golden crown shaped like rising stars. Everyone in the crowd bowed as she raised her hand. "Welcome, humans of Earth," Kavira said loudly, her voice strong. "May your short stay bring no trouble to our sky." There was polite applause. Then Kavira looked directly at Daniel. She tilted her head, looking amused. "And who is that one?" she asked, pointing at him. "The quiet one in the back. A servant." One of the Earth officers replied, "That is Daniel Rook, our lead translator." Kavira raised one eyebrow and smiled in a mocking way. "A translator. So the Terrans send soft men to do the talking now? Is this your strength? A quiet earthworm who hides behind words?" The crowd of Velmari nobles laughed. Even some of the guards smirked, but Daniel said nothing. He didn't frown. He didn't look away. He simply looked at Kavira for a moment with calm, tired eyes and then turned around and walked away. He walked off the platform slowly, not in anger, but with peace, like the insult didn't touch him at all. The laughter stopped. The princess blinked. No one had ever done that to her before. Later that evening, in the garden halls of the royal palace, Kavira walked with her brother, Prince Talon. He was older, wiser, and quieter than her. "Did you see how that human walked?" "Away?" she asked, still annoyed. He didn't even speak. No fire, no anger. "Maybe he didn't need to," Talon said. "What do you mean?" "He's not here to fight," Talon explained. "He's here to learn. A man who can stay calm while being insulted, that is not weakness. That is control." Kavira folded her arms. "Or maybe he is just afraid. Or maybe," Talon said, looking at the stars, "he just knows you are not as important as you." Kavira didn't reply, but that sentence stayed in her mind. The next day, Daniel walked through the outer city, visited the old markets, and talked with alien merchants in their native tongues. He helped a local woman carry her heavy bags without being asked. He gave water to a tired guard standing in the sun. Many people stared at him. Some remembered the way he had walked away from the princess. A group of young Velmari boys followed, him at a distance, whispering. One ran up and asked, "Are you the human who walked away from Princess Kavira?" Daniel smiled gently. "Yes." "Why didn't you fight her words?" the boy asked. Daniel knelt down and said, "Because her words weren't meant to hurt me. They were meant to see if I would react, and I chose not to." The boy blinked, then nodded slowly, though he didn't fully understand. That evening, a small public event was held at the Grand River Plaza. Kavira stood on a high balcony, looking down at the gathering crowd. She saw Daniel sitting quietly near the back, helping. An old alien fix a broken chair. Again, no spotlight, no pride, just helping. Kavira frowned. Why did he not try to prove himself? Why didn't he care about being seen? She asked one of her advisors, why does this human act like he is above it all? The advisor shrugged. Maybe he simply knows his worth. Kavira stared down again. Daniel looked up once and met her eyes. But he didn't bow. He didn't smile. He just nodded respectfully and looked away. It was like she didn't scare him at all in the next few days.
Word of the silent human spread through Velmara Prime. Some called him arrogant.
Others called him wise. Some said he was weak. Others called him brave. But Daniel didn't try to change anyone's thoughts. He just kept doing his quiet work, helping, listening, walking through the empire without pride, without fear. And deep in her heart, Kavira began to feel something. New, not anger. Curiosity. Princess Kavira sat in the high garden balcony, watching the city below. From there, she could see the tall crystal towers, the blue trees, and the curved white streets of Velmara Prime. Ships floated in the air like slow birds, and the soft, purple sky glowed above, but Kavira was not looking at the view. She was watching him down near the corner of the market. Walking calmly between stalls was the human called Daniel Rook. He wore the same simple gray uniform. No armor, no weapons. Just a small translator device on his belt, and a quiet face that never showed too much emotion. For days now, Kavira had found herself noticing him, not on purpose. But her eyes kept finding him in the crowd. He did not act like other humans. He did not look around in fear or try to please the nobles. He did not try to impress anyone. Instead, he walked with quiet steps and spoke to everyone: guards, workers, merchants, even children that annoyed her, and also confused her. Earlier that morning, Kavira had seen something strange. A young Velmari boy had dropped a bag of water crystals near the temple stairs. Many passers-by ignored it. Some laughed. Daniel had seen it. He stepped forward, helped the boy, gathered the crystals, and gave him a small snack from his own pocket. No one clapped. No one thanked him. Daniel did not wait for thanks. He just smiled gently and kept walking. Kavira had watched from her hovercraft above. Why would someone help with such small things? Why would a visitor, especially one from Earth, care about low-class workers? Why does he act like that? The guard shrugged. Maybe that's just who he is. Kavira narrowed her eyes. That answer didn't satisfy her later that day. Kavira entered the royal archives, a place of knowledge, filled with glowing books and memory crystals. She wanted to learn more about Earth, and about Daniel. She found an old record about his past. Born on the outer colonies, he lost his family during a rebel attack. He was taken in by Earth's Peace Corps, trained in languages, cultures, and survival. He had visited over 20 planets before the age of 23. He survived war, the librarian told her. But he chose peace. That is rare. Kavira sat quietly for a moment, then asked, why would someone who has seen pain stay so calm? The librarian smiled. Because those who truly understand pain do not wish to cause more of it. That evening, in the quiet halls near the reflecting pools, Kavira saw Daniel again. He was sitting beside an elder Velmari woman, helping her read a trade report from Earth. Kavira stepped forward. Her royal boots echoed on the polished stone. The elder woman stood up quickly and bowed. Daniel stood too, but did not bow deeply. Princess, he said calmly. Kavira raised an eyebrow. Still not afraid of me? Daniel gave a small smile. I'm not here to fear anyone, only to understand. Kavira walked closer. You've been quite active for someone who says little. Helping children, fixing temple lights, speaking with builders. Do you enjoy such low tasks? Daniel shrugged. Something needs doing, I do it. Status doesn't matter. She tilted her head. No pride, no ambition. I have purpose, he replied. That's better. Kavira didn't expect that answer. She tried again, this time with sharper words. You humans always pretend to be kind. But deep down, you're just like us, hungry for power. Daniel looked at her, not angry, not cold, just steady. I've seen what hunger for power does, he said. That's why I chose not to chase it. For the first time, Kavira felt unsure of her own thoughts. The next morning, sudden power failure hit the Sky Garden hospital. The lift system stopped. The communication panels went silent. A child was stuck on the upper platform, crying. People stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Then Daniel stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't wait for orders. He used an old maintenance ladder, climbed up carefully, spoke gently to the child in Velmari tongue, and carried her down with steady arms. No news cameras. No applause. He just handed the girl to her mother and quietly walked away. Kavira had been nearby. She saw the whole thing. She said nothing, but she followed him from a distance. That night, in her private quarters, Kavira stared at her reflection. Why couldn't she stop thinking about the human? He didn't react to her insults. He didn't chase fame. He didn't act weak. But he didn't try to appear strong either. He was different. She called her brother Prince Talon and said, "Tell me something. What kind of power is greater than a sword?" Talon replied. "The kind that doesn't need to be shown." Kavira looked out her window at the sleeping city and far below. Walking quietly across a bridge under soft purple light was Daniel Rook. The lower district of Velmara Prime was busy as always. Bright stalls filled the streets. Workers moved between factories. Air transports floated low above rooftops carrying supplies. Children played near the fountains while merchants shouted prices. Daniel Rook stood at the corner of the square, helping an old shopkeeper fix a broken display light. He was calm, focused, and quiet as usual. The old man thanked him, but Daniel just smiled and waved it off. Then came the first sound, a deep, strange boom. A second later, smoke rose from the far end of the street. Another explosion followed, shaking the ground. People screamed, birds flew from the trees. Fire burst from the rooftop of a fuel station, sending orange flames into the sky. The lower district was on fire, from the high balcony of the palace. Princess Kavira turned sharply as she saw the flames rising. "Where is that?" she asked the guard. "The industrial section," the guard said. "Fuel tanks and power cells. A fire has spread across 2 blocks. Civilians are trapped." "I'm going," Kavira said without pause. Her advisor stepped forward. "Princess, you are not allowed in the danger zone. Let the emergency units handle it." Kavira's fists clenched. "Those are my people." Even as she argued, her eyes caught something below, a human figure running toward the fire. It was Daniel, no armor, no weapon, no orders. He ran straight into the danger. The fire roared through the district. Orange flames climbed walls. Smoke turned the sky dark. Screams echoed from trapped workers behind steel doors. Daniel reached the edge of the fire zone. A group of Velmari guards stood there, waiting for orders. "There are still people inside," a technician said, panicked. "But the systems are failing. Auto doors won't open." Daniel looked at a nearby drone lying damaged on the ground. He grabbed its scanner, rewired it quickly, and pointed it toward the factory's locked gate. "I can bypass the door lock," he said, "but someone needs to guide the civilians out." One of the guards stared. "That's suicide." Daniel didn't reply. He simply ran forward and vanished into the smoke. Inside the burning building, the heat was crushing. Pipes hissed. Flames burst through ceilings. Sparks danced through the air like angry stars. Daniel moved carefully. He used his small map reader to find blocked paths. He wrapped part of his uniform over his mouth and shouted in Velmari, "I'm here to help. Follow my voice." From behind heavy machines, a group of 5 workers came out coughing. One woman was carrying her injured son. "This way," Daniel said, pointing toward the clear path. "Stay low. Move fast." He led them back through a narrow hallway, pushing open a jammed side door. The air outside was clearer. Medical workers rushed in to help the survivors, but Daniel didn't stop. He went back in again. From the skycraft above, Princess Kavira watched it all. Her ship hovered just above the fire zone. Her eyes were locked on the ground. He went in again. She asked the officer beside her, "Yes, Princess. He's already brought out one group. Is anyone else helping?" "Not yet." The emergency suits are still being prepared. Kavira bit her lip. He doesn't even have a suit. The officer nodded. He's just using instinct. Kavira leaned forward, eyes wide. A part of her strong, proud. Royal had always believed power came from command and control. But this human, this quiet translator, was showing a different kind of strength, and he didn't need to shout to prove it. Inside, Daniel moved slower now. The smoke was thicker. His head hurt. But he found another Group 2 engineers and a guard trapped behind fallen beams. I can lift it, he said, coughing. You pull them free, he pushed with all his strength, face red from the heat. The guard pulled the others out, just as the floor behind them collapsed. They all made it out through a side exit. Daniel dropped to his knees, gasping. His arms shook. His face was covered in ash. Kavira landed her ship in the plaza herself. She rushed through the crowd of medics and guards until she found Daniel sitting on a step, leaning against a wall, breathing hard. You went in 3 times, she said. Daniel looked up at her slowly. They needed help. You could have died. He smiled weakly. I didn't. Kavira stared at him. His uniform was torn. His hands were burned, but his eyes were calm. Why? She asked softly. Why would you risk your life for people you don't even know? Daniel looked up at the rising smoke and said, Because I do know them. Not by name, but they're people. That's enough. Kavira sat beside him quietly. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she said something she had never said before. Thank you. Daniel gave a small nod. You're welcome. But I didn't do it for you. Later, reports of the fire spread across the city. The people talked about the brave rescue, but the story that passed through every house, every market, every school was the same. The silent human ran into fire, saved lives without asking for anything. Even the nobles who once laughed at him spoke his name with respect. And as the sun set behind the hills of Elmara Prime, Princess Kavira stood alone on her balcony. She looked down at the city and whispered to herself, he never needed a crown to act like a leader. Princess Kavira walked through the silent marble halls of the palace. Her thoughts were not calm. Images from the fire kept playing in her mind flames, smoke, screams. And Daniel Rook running into danger again and again. He had saved more than 10 lives that day, without armor, without weapons, without needing to be told. And still, after all that, he never asked for anything. Not thanks, not reward, not glory. Kavira needed to know more. This quiet human had confused her from the start. At first she thought he was weak, then strange. Now, she wasn't sure. So she went to someone who knew everything about their guests. Archivist Rena, the royal record keeper. Inside the grand archive chamber, glowing crystal books floated around the room. Soft lights lit the long shelves. Old knowledge from hundreds of worlds rested here. Rena stood at a floating desk, her eyes scanning reports. She was a wise Velmori woman with long silver hair and gentle hands. Kavira stepped forward. What? Everything you have on Daniel Rook. Rena looked up slowly. Silent human? Kavira nodded. I need to understand him. Rena smiled. Follow me. They entered a smaller chamber. Rena placed a memory crystal into the viewing panel. A soft light rose, and images began to float in the air. Daniel as a child, standing on a colony. World and Earth's outer system. His parents were peace workers, sent to help settle conflicts between humans and aliens. But one day, during a civil uprising, their ship was destroyed. Daniel was only 7. He was rescued by a peacekeeper's ship and taken to Earth. From there, trained under the Terran Unity program, learning languages, diplomacy, survival, and culture. He had visited 23 planets. Out. In refugee camps? Solved. Disputes between species, but he never joined the army. Kavira asked. No, Rena replied. He refused. He said the galaxy has enough soldiers. It needs more bridges, not more swords. Avita was quiet. Images faded, leaving the room still. This is why he never shouts, she whispered. Because he has seen what shouting leads to. Rena nodded. He does not walk away because he is weak. He walks away because he knows where pride ends. Kavira looked down. She remembered how she had insulted him, tried to break his calm with words, tried to shake him, but nothing worked. Now she understood why. That evening, Kavira requested a private meeting with Daniel. He arrived quietly, as always, wearing his simple gray clothes. No guards, no escort. They met in the royal garden, where soft, glowing flowers bloomed and crystal birds chirped gently. Kavira stood under a star tree. She waited until Daniel was close before speaking. "I read your file," she said softly. "I know about your past." Daniel said nothing. He didn't look surprised. "I'm sorry," she continued, "for the way I treated you when you arrived. I thought calmness meant cowardice. I see now I was wrong." Daniel looked at her with his usual quiet eyes. "You weren't wrong," he replied. "You just didn't know yet." Kavira sighed. "You never fought back. Not with words. Not with pride. Why?" Daniel picked a fallen petal from the ground and studied it before answering. "I've seen what pride can do. It starts wars. It burns cities. It makes people forget each other's faces." He looked up. "If I get angry every time someone mocks me, I waste my time. I save my fire for when it truly matters." Kavira blinked, like the fire in the lower district. Daniel nodded. It mattered. They walked together in silence for a while. The night air was cool. Lights from the city sparkled below the hills. Kavira said, "You've changed how people see you. Even the nobles talk about the quiet human now with respect." Daniel smiled faintly. "I didn't come here to change." "Anything but you did," she said, without trying. Daniel stopped and looked at her seriously. "Power is not in crowns or titles. It's in how you treat people when no one is watching." Kavira felt those words deep in her heart. All her life, she had been trained to lead by strength, by command, by force. Now, standing beside a man who had no army and no status, she felt like a student for the first time. The next day, Daniel visited a nearby school to help children with language skills. Kavira quietly followed, standing at the back. She watched him teach simple words, laugh with the kids, and listen to their stories. He corrected mistakes without shame, praised their effort, and made everyone feel important. One small girl gave him a drawing, a picture of a man standing between fire and a family. She wrote under it, "He saved us." He didn't shout. Kavira watched as Daniel smiled, thanked the girl, folded the drawing with care. It was the only gift she had seen him keep that night. Kavira sat in her chamber, writing in her journal. She wrote not as a princess, but as a young woman trying to understand something new. "Today I learned that silence is not weakness. It is strength with control, and that sometimes the person who speaks the least carries the most truth. I once insulted the quiet human, but now I am listening." The sky docks of Velmara Prime floated high above the city, connected by glowing bridges and guarded by patrol ships. From here, transport vessels came and went, carrying goods, people, technology to many planets. It was a place of movement, order, and control. But today, something went wrong. Early in the morning, alarms began to ring. Red lights flashed through the dock control tower. Deep voice echoed over the speakers. "This area is now under our control. Do not resist." Group of rebel Velmari soldiers, once part of the Empire, had taken over Dock Area 12. They wanted to steal the ships, control the skies, and start a rebellion against the royal house. They disabled security systems, locked doors, and took hostage as workers, engineers, and guards. Panic spread quickly. From the palace, Princess Kavira received the news. She stood with officers around a large hologram map. "Why Dock 12?" she asked. "It connects to the outer zones," one officer explained. "If they escape with the ships, they could attack smaller cities." "Have the guards moved in?" she asked. "They're trapped outside. The rebels jammed the systems. Our weapons could hurt the hostages." Kavira clenched her fist. Can't let this turn into a war. Then someone spoke quietly from behind. I have an idea, said Daniel Rook. Everyone turned. Daniel stood calmly, holding a small device in his hand. I studied the docks last week, he said. There are old ventilation tunnels that connect to the power hub. The rebels didn't block those. I can get inside. Ah! The officers looked at each other. Too dangerous, one said. They'll find you. Kavira stepped forward. You won't go alone. Daniel looked at her. She wore light armor, now not for show, but for action. You? He asked. Yes, Kavira said. If anyone should take back our sky, it's me. Daniel smiled slightly. All right then. Let's move. They entered the lower side of the sky docks, where few people came anymore. Dust covered the old halls. Lights flickered. No guards. No machines. Daniel found the tunnel entrance a narrow shaft with broken panels. He looked at Kavira. Still time to change your mind? Kavira raised her chin. Not today. They crawled through the narrow tunnel, one after the other. The air was warm and dry. Small sparks danced on the walls from old wiring. Finally, they reached the ingest. Above the power hub, Daniel opened a hidden panel. Through it, they could see the rebels below of them. They wore stolen armor. 2 guarded the hostages. Yet the rest checked ship controls. We can't fight them, Kavira whispered. We won't, Daniel replied. We shut them down, pointed to a control board. If I reach that panel, I can trigger a soft pulse. It will stop their weapons for 90 seconds. Kavira nodded. That's enough time. Daniel slipped out of the tunnel and moved silently across the metal floor, staying behind crates. Kavira watched from above, ready suddenly. One of the rebels turned just as Daniel reached the panel. Hey! Before the rebel could finish, Kavira dropped from the tunnel and kicked him hard, knocking his weapon away. The other rebels turned too late. Daniel pressed the button, zapped a soft shockwave. Filled the room. Lights flickered again. The rebels' weapons powered down, useless. The guards outside, now able to enter, stormed the dock and quickly took control. No shots were fired. No lives were lost. The hostages were safe. After the rebels were arrested, the hostages stood and clapped for Kavira and Daniel, but both of them stepped back, letting the guards take the credit. Later, as they sat near the dock's edge, watching the skyships move again, Kavira turned to Daniel. You didn't have to come with me, she said. Daniel looked out at the stars. You didn't have to. Come with me either, she smiled. I guess we both made the same choice. Daniel nodded. Peaceful world needs leaders who act, not just speak. Kavira was quiet for a while. Then she said, Today I followed your lead. No, Daniel replied. You led by trusting someone without a crown. That night, the Empire was calm again. No more alarms. No more fear. But something new had started. People whispered. The princess worked beside the human. Others said. She didn't command him. She trusted him. And in the palace, in a small hall with soft light and a silver ceiling, the royal council met to discuss the event. An elder counselor said, Perhaps. The young princess has found what true strength means. Another said, and perhaps the human is not just a translator, but a symbol of calm in crisis, a symbol of strength without shouting. The next day, Kavira and Daniel walked through the city. People nodded to them, even children. Waved Tatsavira turned to Daniel. Do you regret coming here? No, he said. This world showed me something rare. What? A leader who learns. Kavira looked ahead. And you showed me that true power doesn't need a loud voice. They kept walking together now, no longer strangers. And above them, the skyships flew in peace once more. The sun rose over Velmara Prime, painting the skies gold and purple. The great white towers of the capital city stood still in the morning light. Birds flew high. The wind was gentle, but inside the royal palace, change was in the air. Princess? Kavira stood before the royal council in the Hall of Echoes. The elders sat in their crystal seats, silent and serious. For the first time in years, the room was full of attention, not arguments. Kavira was no longer the proud, sharp-tongued girl who mocked a visitor from Earth. She was now a leader who had walked through fire, stopped a rebellion, and listened to the quiet voice of reason. And beside her stood Daniel Rook, not as a guard, not as a servant, but as a trusted advisor. Kavira spoke clearly. Our empire has always been strong. Strength alone is not enough. We must grow wiser, kinder, more open. Some elders frowned. Others raised their eyebrows. We are not asking to forget our ways, she continued, but to open new doors that lead to peace, to friendship, and to true leadership. She looked at Daniel. This man, she said, came from Earth with no weapon, no title, and no desire for power. He did not demand respect. He earned it. Not through loud words, but through quiet action. Daniel stepped forward. He bowed respectfully but spoke with steady eyes. I'm not here to change your empire, he said. I only came to learn. And in learning, I found something special. Silence filled the room. Then, slowly, the oldest counselor stood. We have watched you both, he said, and we believe it is time. The future must be led by those who walk with wisdom, not just with pride. That night, news spread across Velmara Prime. Princess Kavira was named the official heir to the Velmari Empire. But what surprised many was not the announcement. It was the second part. She named a human, quiet, kind outsider as her chief peace advisor. Reactions were mixed at first. Some were shocked, some confused. A few were even angry, but most were curious, because they had seen Daniel's actions. They had heard the stories. They had watched the princess change, and deep down, many felt it too. This was the beginning of something better. Days turned to weeks. Cavira, and Daniel traveled across cities, visiting schools, helping workers, and listening to local leaders. Together, they repaired old systems, stopped unfair taxes, and created new programs for alien citizens who had once been ignored. Everywhere they went, people noticed one thing. They did not command from towers. They walked beside the people. One day, in a farming village, a little girl gave Kavira a flower and said, "My mother says you smile more now." Kavira laughed softly and replied, "Your mother is wise." Daniel smiled too, watching from behind. He didn't need to stand in front. He was used to the back. But Kavira reached for his hand and pulled him forward. This is the man who helped me become someone worth smiling. During a trade summit, a powerful alien leader from a far world arrived. He wore golden armor and spoke with a loud voice. When he saw Daniel, he smirked. "Is this the famous human advisor?" he said loudly. He looked soft. Some in the room laughed. But before Daniel could speak, Kavira stood up. She looked directly at the leader and said, "Be careful with your words. He is the man who saved your niece's school from fire 2 months ago." The room went quiet. The alien leader blinked, then bowed slightly toward Daniel. No more insults were made after that. One evening, after a long day of travel, Kavira and Daniel sat beneath the blue leaf tree in the palace garden. The stars above were bright. "Do you miss Earth?" "Asked sometimes," Daniel said. "But this place feels like home now." She nodded, and I no longer feel alone in this palace. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Kavira said, "The day you walked away from me without saying a word, I thought you were weak." Daniel chuckled softly. "I remember. But now I know," she continued, "that silence is stronger than noise. Patience is stronger than pride, and kindness ... is stronger than fear." Daniel looked at her. "And you, princess, have become the kind of leader people will follow not because they must, but because they want to." Later that year, during the Festival of Unity, Kavira gave a speech before thousands of citizens. She spoke of peace, honor, and the future. But at the end, she called Daniel forward, and in front of the whole empire, she said, "This man came here as a visitor. He stayed as a helper. But now, he is part of our story. He taught me that strength is quiet, leadership is humble, and real change begins with listening. I once insulted him. Now I trust him with the future of our people." The crowd stood. and clapped. Even those who once doubted now understood. Daniel stood quietly, as always, his eyes calm. And this time, when he looked at Kavira, he didn't walk away.